Hello and welcome to Miniatures Rundown. I'm Mitchell.
And I'm not Josh.
And today we are going to deep dive into the Necromunda gang of the Chaos Helots.
Chaos Helots, not to be confused with Chaos Corrupted gangs.
Those are different.
This one's an actual, fully fleshed out, several years ago gang.
Yeah. Fully fleshed out for,
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But it's hard to do lore on Chaos and Necromunda because it's basically just chaos is everywhere, including Necromunda.
Yeah, it's one of those things that even Necromunda can't escape. Chaos popping up in the little, back alleys and rats' nests everywhere.
Sometimes the Imperium's going to get a little too greedy, put somebody in the slums, and then they're going to go like, that blood god sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you get chaos.
Mm-hmm.
The general overview is, in fact, just that. They're super generalized. You can kind of do anything with their list, but they do have some customization that makes them want to focus pretty hard.
Yeah.
We will talk about all the customization later. It is actually surprisingly deep for as old of a gang as they are.
Yeah, they do have a lot of different ways you can go with them. It's kind of similar to what you guys said about the Gene Stealers gang. Like, they're not something that they're like, there's no one particular thing that they're super good at, but they are pretty good at a lot of different things.
Yeah. They're not Vansar, great at shooting. They're not Corpse Grinder Cults, just melee. They're a nice spread, and they use chaos to back up their kind of low stats.
Yeah.
First, we generally talk about their house skills. They don't have any. They just have the cult weird powers.
Yeah. So basically, your witch gets their own set of weird powers. This is something that got a little interesting when the Book of the Outcast came out, because their cult powers aren't that great, with the exceptions from a couple of them. So 9 times out of 10, I don't think it's really written anywhere that they can't use the Outcast powers.
Right.
But the general consensus online is that you should use the Outcast powers. If it doesn't specifically say that you can, you should do it anyway.
Yeah. The Dalak specifically say you must choose your first power from the Dalak list. Then you can pick other things. Whereas Chaos Helots does not say that.
Yeah, it doesn't say that. We don't know if it's just because it's a really old book. They're in the Book of Ruin, if you didn't know. Whether it's a really old book and they just didn't think to write that, or they just generally meant that you can take Outcast powers.
Which is good, because the Outcast powers are great.
Yes.
Work for Coty card on the top to our list of Outcast powers and how good they are.
Yeah.
But we are going to talk about these powers.
Yeah.
Because they're worth talking about. They're still not terrible.
Right.
They're just a little overshadowed.
Yeah, for sure.
By the Outcast book. First one on the list is the Scouring. We've talked about this a few times. It's showed up a bunch of different places. It basically gives you a Strength 2 Flamer. It used to be, when this book came out, garbage, because it was a continuous upkeep, which means you had to spend an action in order to get a Flamer.
Yeah.
But now you can do it as a bonus action, still move and shoot it. It's fine. Right. It doesn't take up a weapon slot, because you just count as having it. It has Blaze, which is always a good little crowd control thing. But it's only Strength 2, no AP, 1 damage, so don't expect it to actually damage anything.
Right.
It's just there for, like, mass pinning, maybe set some stuff on fire, call it good.
Yeah, I would sooner just give them a hand flamer.
Yeah.
But if you have nothing else.
Yeah. Next up is Levitation, which very similarly to the Scouring got better with the new book, but this one got way better because it is also a continuous upkeep, but it gives you +3 move, ignore all terrain, move freely between levels, can't fall and can't be pinned. 5 things. The only downside is you can't ignore impassable terrain or walls, so you can't go ghost outside of a a Zone Mortalis mission.
Right, yeah, you can't just go through the walls or anything.
Yeah, you're flying, not a ghost.
Right.
And that's it. You upkeep it, so you get to, it's a basic action, so you can do it and then move. And then next turn, upkeep it, and then move, ignoring everything 16 inches across the board.
Right. And it's super good if you lean into melee, for sure. And they do have some pretty good melee weapon options. Their stats don't really reflect melee very well, but
yeah, we'll talk about that because again, these are only on the witch. Like you can only get these powers on the witch, which is rough because the witch's stats are kind of bad. Again, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and then warp strength, it gives you +2 strength and +1 damage of all close combat attacks. Again, on this profile, not very great. Sounds pretty good, but
you're going to have to lean hard into melee to make that power worth it. I mean, it can be very good. Adding +1 damage to anything is very good.
Yeah.
But when you start at weapon skill 5, strength 3, 1 attack, you got to put some stats. You got to put some XP into that thing to make it even worth it.
Yeah, you'd have to be sitting on your witch being very meh for a very long time before the witch, started to do anything worth note.
Yeah, I agree. You could get, like, I don't know, dual-wielding chain swords and make it so that you're, like, +1 to hit, and you have a bonus attack from dual-wielding, and then you get +2 strength and extra damage. That's not bad, but you still only have 3 attacks on the charge.
Right.
You would still need to... And weapon skill 4 with the +1. It's still pretty rough.
There's better routes you can go for melee in this gang without having to dedicate your witch to it.
You have to be very, very stubborn about this witch is gonna kill people in melee.
Yeah, and if you don't need the witch for any other reason, sure.
Yeah.
The next one is Dark Shield, which this one I think is my favorite. Until the end phase, +1 to all save rolls for caster and friendly fighters. If they don't have a save, they gain a 6-up save. So if they're not wearing any armor, which in this gang that might happen
because you have
a lot of cheap gangers,
especially early.
Yeah, especially early.
Yeah, that is pretty good. It is a simple action. It's a simple action. That means you could perform it twice.
I don't know that you'd ever need to, but...
Would they stack?
I don't know.
Would they I actually didn't notice that. I wrote this, and I didn't notice that until just now. It's a simple action.
Is Dark Shield not continuous?
It is not continuous.
Really? I thought
yeah,
it
it's
was.
Until the end of the phase.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's fine to, move up and kind of pulse out some armor. It is really nice to be able to, your guy that has heavy carapace sitting in the back, so he's only ever targeted from his front with, dude is unkillable in the back line.
Yeah, it is within 3 inches, I believe.
Which is pretty low.
But basically, I think this is the best one if you weren't using outcast powers, just because this is a good way to help your leader be a bigger beat stick. Because you just basically kind of, group activate, get your leader up there, get your witch up there, and then, your leader's going to fight, and if your witch is already there, he gets bonus to his save, stuff like that, just to help your guys not die, which, spoiler alert, they're going to die
Like
a
I
lot.
said, that's bad.
Yeah, or just run it up with a group of gangers, and then if they don't have any armor, they now have a 6-up save at very least.
I do like that. It's probably my favorite one for a support witch, which is probably what you will do because her stats are kind of bad.
Right.
Next up is Maddening Visions, which is a basic action. Until the end phase, all enemies ending their movement within 3 inches must make a willpower check, and if they fail, they go insane. Now, insane is very strong. We've talked about this many times before. Insane's one of the worst things to be afflicted with in the game. 3 inches is very short, though, and they have to end their movement. You can't, do it and then walk up to them and then give them a save.
Right.
So it's a little rough. It would be really, really good against certain things like Ogrins and GSC and all the Goliath have terrible willpower. Other than that, it's pretty situational.
Yeah, it's very hard to set up, I think.
Yeah, it's meh. And last is Assail, which is awful on the witch.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Because you have to make a ballistic skill check. You have to make a ranged attack, targeting something in line of sight in 12 inches. So it's basically a pistol that hits on a 5.
Right.
But you also have to make a willpower test for it first. They move D3 inches. Then they're pinned and prone. If they hit a wall, they also take a strength 3 hit.
Yeah.
If they hit a fighter, that fighter is also pinned and prone and also takes a strength 3 hit. Holy crap, that's bad.
Yeah, it's not great.
Forced movement, we talked about before. Forced movement is very strong. But the hoops you gotta jump through to get 2 inches of movement on average.
Yeah, again, it's just it sounds like it could be good in very, very certain situations. Like, maybe you're playing on whatever the Ash Waste one is where if you go off the road.
Yeah,
if you fall off the road, you're out of combat. You could just, just boop somebody out. But, like, other than that situation, I can't really see it being super valuable other than to maybe knock them off a gantry or something.
I think that's the worst one on I think that's the worst one on this list.
Absolutely.
Because everything else has like some use. Even warp strength you can lean into. That one's like, man, don't do that. Next we're going to move on to their faction abilities, which the first and most prominent, because it gets used the most, is the Dark Ritual. We had kind of in our okay, we'll get to that. Dark Ritual is a little complicated. It is a post-battle action to basically pray to one of the gods. You roll 2d6. You can pick one of your fighters at random to be the focus, or if you have a captive and they're available to be sold to the guilders, aka they had a chance to take them back, you can choose them as a sacrifice. A 9+ is a success.
Which is rough.
A double ones or after modifiers, which I will cover modifiers momentarily. A 2 or less is a what did I call it? Deemed unworthy. Oh, feels so good. So there is a space in there where you don't succeed, but you're not deemed unworthy, which is worth noting.
Right.
And the modifiers are thus. You get +1 to your roll if your gang won the fight. You get +1 if you gained rep. You get +2 if you're already invoking that god, which we talked about in the Chaos Corrupted. Chaos Corrupted can't change their gods, but Chaos Helots can.
Yeah, but they also don't have to do the Dark Ritual, right?
They can do the Dark Ritual.
They can
do the Dark Ritual.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They get +2 if you're sacrificing a captive to fuel the ritual. You get -2 if your cult is in favor of a different god. Again, if you're switching. -1 if you lost the fight, and -1 if you lost reputation. So these things can stack. So like, if you gained rep and lost rep in the same fight, it's a net 0, that kind of thing.
Right. If you still lost rep and stuff like that, but do have a sacrifice, that'll kind of
blah blah blah. So the interesting thing, the reason that I said that we would talk about it later is because the sacrifice isn't really defined well.
No.
So what happens? If you roll a success, a 9+ after modifiers, you get to pick one of the Chaos Gods. You get all their benefits. And then the guy that you chose at random gets D6 experience, which is very good. Yes. But if you fail, if you're deemed unworthy, the guy that you chose at random, and remember, this is random.
It is very swingy.
Turns into a chaos spawn.
Yes. Which is not a bad...
It's not...
Like, it's funny because it's like, Snake Eyes are less than a 2. Oh, that's terrible, deemed unworthy. But you get a free chaos spawn out of it.
Chaos spawn can be very good. They're ridiculously tough.
I think even at their worst state, like, losing a... 35 credit ganger, like, unless they're like absolutely kitted out, to the teeth, like a chaos spawn, like, at least in my experience, was like, I rolled really bad stats for it. We'll get into the rolling for stats, but even my worst chaos spawn, like, was extremely valuable.
Yeah. The interesting part is it is random, so I think the only one that can't be the target is your leader and the witch.
And your gang, or your champions.
Your champions
so
can't be the target.
So it's just your
gangers. Okay. Well, that is better. I was afraid you could, like, I don't know, lose your Overwatch guy with a heavy stubber.
On first read, I read that and got a little scared, but...
Okay, that's not that bad.
Yeah, it's just your gangers. There's no Jews in this gang, so you don't have to worry about that. But, yeah, it's just your gangers, so as long as, again, they're not kitted to the teeth, trading them out for a chaos spawn is a no-brainer. Yeah. I mean, you have to probably lose to get it, but
So for the sacrificing a captive, it is not explicitly said that the captive is removed. It is not.
Yeah, the captive, I don't think it says anything about the captive. The ganger that you choose is.
Yes. So the ganger that you choose would get the experience if you pass, or turn to a chaos spawn if you fail. But if you have a captive and you sacrifice it to get the benefit, nothing happens to them. It does not say they're removed from the gang roster. It does not say they're sold. It does not say anything. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I can't find it anywhere. We played it like
I don't
that
remember. Yeah, I don't remember reading
because
that either.
you had my bird.
I did steal his bird.
I had a familiar, and he took it, and he was using him as a basically a chaos battery.
Basically.
And we made a deal that I would get my bird back if I traded you a random ganger I don't care about, so that you could.
And then that was my battery.
And that was your battery for the rest of the campaign.
Yeah.
So please tell me if I'm wrong, because it would make way more sense if like you sacrifice them. Although I would like that less, because like automatically killing an opponent's guy is always feels bad.
Maybe they didn't put it in there just to avoid some feels bads, but
sure. Rules as written, the guy doesn't go away.
Right.
You sacrifice the guy, and the next week he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Rules as probably intended, he would be sold, and he would just lose all of his stuff, and he would be deleted from the roster. But I can't find where it says that.
Yeah, I kind of always assumed that it would be the chaos spawn if you got the chaos spawn on it. But again, I can't really find anywhere where it explicitly says that.
Yeah, it's weird. Again, old book. It happens. I looked in the FAQ. I couldn't find anything. Anyway, on to some of the other benefits. When you do a dark ritual, you get to pick a god. They are not explicitly called Khorne, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, and Nurgle because, like, the names are not known to everyone, and chaos is small enough on Necromunda that it's not like, oh, I worship Khorne.
Yeah, it's kind of like some of the in Age of Sigmar, most of the people that are worshipping the chaos gods don't even know they're worshipping him. It's kind of that thing. No random Necromunda citizen's gonna know about Khorne or Tzeentch or any of them unless they somehow found it. But
they might hear of the Dark Prince.
Yeah,
they might hear of the Blood God, but they don't know the name. But would you start with your favorite? Which one's your favorite?
I wouldn't say it was my favorite, but the one that I used was the Tzeentch one. Just because I was trying to lean more into kind of a shooting gang when I did it. So
for all of them, you get a once a round for your gang.
Yeah.
Bonus to your spawn and a bonus to your leader.
Yeah. So once a round, ignore all negative modifiers to a shoot action. So basically, if they're like in cover or anything like that, I'm pretty sure it even ignores like long range.
It ignores all modifiers.
Yeah.
All negative modifiers.
Yeah, negative
you can
modifiers.
Get positive modifiers.
Mm-hmm.
That one is probably the strongest one.
Yes.
It is. So I played Goliath, and I played Architect of Fate Goliath because I had a double grenade launcher Goliath guy that could ignore the negatives of shooting both. And when I remembered to do it, he was a beast.
Yeah, and then your Chaos Spawn gets a 4-up save, so it just makes them a little tougher than they already are.
Which is pretty tough.
And then your leader becomes a Psyker and gets a random core weird power.
I find it weird that they don't get one of the powers that we talked about earlier. They get one from the core rulebook.
Yeah, that one is weird.
And since it's random, I would talk to your arbitrator if you can take one from the Book of Outcasts.
Yeah, again, it might just be a thing where, old rules don't translate well into new rules.
Because the, what's it called? The drug that you take, not Spiker. There's a drug that you can take that turns you into a Psyker for one fight, and there is an FAQ for that you can take the ones from the Book of the Outcasts. So hopefully you can do the same here.
Yeah, again, talk to your arbitrator if you can't find anything on it, but
yep.
I would.
Yeah. Next, I'll go with my personal favorite, which is the Dark Prince. I am a Slaanesh lover, and the benefits you get for that is once around, you get to chain activate with unlimited range. Very strong, being able to, especially if you have some like long range guys, to be able to set up some damage for your, or you can do like your Psyker and then your leader or whatever. being able to chain activating is a huge deal. Being able to do it with unlimited range is even better. Yes. Your spawn get to roll 2 dice to move and pick the highest. They have random movement. We'll talk about it momentarily. And the last thing is your leader gets +2 to their movement speed, which is nutso.
And I think that's why this is probably one of the more better ones to choose as well, because
the spawn ability is fine.
Yeah.
Like since they move randomly, like it makes them a little more consistent.
Yeah.
But the +2 to leader movement is you can be a melee beast with speed 7 base.
Yeah, if you go melee beat stick with your leader, which 9 times out of 10 you're going to. But yeah, giving him +2 movement, and then I think you can buff his movement in other ways, and then giving him a chain glaive, which has versatile 2 on it. Like, that's
chain glaive is one of my favorite weapons in the game.
Yeah, that's a pretty big threat range.
Just like pop around a corner, annihilate a guy.
Yep.
Yeah. You can lean hard into your leader being a melee monster with Dark Prince, and I like it.
And the next one is the Plague Lord. Once a round, you get to re-roll a recovery roll.
Yeah, be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, again, re-rolls in Necromunda are very rare, so that's not bad.
Especially when you roll that skull. Roll that skull, and you're like, nope.
Yeah.
Try again. Although it will be like the doing the re-rolls one at a time in doing your leadership. Where it's like, I don't know which one I'm going to do the worst on, so I'm going to, like, save it. Because if you have, like, 4 recovery rolls and you roll and you don't recover, you're like, do I reroll that one?
Right.
Or do I reroll one later if I get a skull? It's the tension.
And then your Chaos Spawn gets +1 toughness, which
is also very good because they're tough.
Yep. And then your leader gets +1 wound, which is pretty big as well.
It is. +1 to wound is one of the, other than skills, one of the highest experience requirements. I think it's +1 wound and +1 attack are like 10 or something like that. They're very expensive. So just getting a free one just for doing the Dark Ritual.
Not bad at all.
So funnily enough, if you are deemed unworthy and you fail your Dark Ritual, you lose these benefits. So you stop having that wound, which is kind of funny.
Right.
And last up is the Blood God. Who is once a round, you get to reroll a wound roll, melee or ranged. It does not say.
Yep.
It's just a wound roll. Your spawn get +1 strength, which makes them killier, and your leader gets +1 attack, which makes them killier.
Yes.
So turns out, Corn wants the blood. I don't know what to tell you. All of these are great. They depend on which direction you're leaning. If like, the +2 movement on the Dark Prince though.
Yeah,
that one's hard to pass up. Yeah, that one's really good.
If you're leaning melee, I'd probably say Dark Prince. If you're leaning shooting, definitely Architect of Fate. The other 2 are still really good.
They are.
Like either way, either which way you lean for your gang.
I feel like the Blood God, ironically enough, would be the best mixed arms one. Like your leader's gonna have +1 attack, so it's probably still gonna want a melee weapon. But being able to reroll a wound roll on anything. Very, very
good. And then even if you're kind of going mixed anyway, your leader's probably still going to be melee just because he's going to be your only good melee.
Yeah.
The Dark Ritual, it makes it where this gang is very swingy.
Yeah.
Because like if you're like me and you're not very good at Necromunda and you lose a lot, like getting a 9 up when you lose, and then you're more than likely going to lose rep because like 9 out of 10 scenarios are gonna have you lose rep.
Yeah.
Even if unless you gain the rep for being the first time you play them or something, like you're already starting off with a -2.
You basically have to win or get very lucky.
Yeah, and if you don't have the Dark God's Blessing already, that's another -2. So that's a -4. So rough. So you're gonna want to put a sacrifice in there for sure.
Oh, definitely.
But even then, like you're still only getting it on, I don't know the math, but like a 10 up, which is ouch.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I believe. Oh, I would have to look. I believe you can in Chaos Helots you can start being start your gang being associated with a god.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but in Chaos Corrupted, you don't. You have to do a Dark Ritual to pick a god.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to not fail.
Right. Basically, the first time you lose, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's gonna suck.
It's going to suck because you're going to lose that power, and then the next time's going to be even worse after that.
Yeah. You're gonna lose the benefits. You're gonna get a chaos spawn.
You might get a chaos spawn.
It is very swing. It calls back to old school chaos stuff, where it's like at the start of the game you rolled 2 dice, and on double ones you turn into a spawn, and on double sixes you turn into a demon prince. It's like It is old school chaos swingy, which is why I like it. Cause
like it adds like fun flavor to it, but like if you're
40K doesn't really do that stuff anymore.
Right, yeah. A lot of their games don't really do that stuff anymore.
Whereas this is like, maybe you turn into a chaos spawn. Maybe your guy gets superpowers for a game.
And that being said, like you can't buy a chaos spawn like outright, no. So like you're gonna want to. It feels bad because you're gonna want to roll a double ones or less than a 2 at some point just so you can get that chaos spawn, but we'll go over that when we talk about the actual model.
And the last thing for their abilities is the mutations. They are significantly less common because you don't do them at the end of every game. You have to suffer either, unless you're suffering from lesson learned, out cold, grievous injury, critical injury, or memorable death, you roll a die, and on a 6 you mutate. So this is out of date because there's a lot more stuff on that list now.
Yeah.
So I would probably talk to your arbitrator on what it counts for. But I would basically say if you are going to suffer a, what is it called? Not a critical injury, the other one.
A lasting injury.
A lasting injury.
Yeah.
If you're going to suffer a lasting injury, then it counts. Because they're all like associated with a specific lasting injury.
Yeah, and they're kind of rare, but I did get 2 of them when I played them, so it was nice.
So yeah, you roll a dice, and on a 6 you mutate. You get +1 to the roll if the damage was inflicted by a Chaos Corrupted GSC or Chaos Helots model. So if you have a fellow Chaos, then they have a chance to mutate each other more highly. +1 to the roll if your injury was dealt by a demon or demon-possessed fighter, which is, like, as far as I'm aware, like 2 scenarios in the game.
Yeah.
And no other real way to do it. And +1 of the fighter if the fighter has been mutated at least once already. Yeah. So you're more susceptible to mutating if you're already mutated. It makes sense. So you can technically get it down to like a 3-up if you're playing the scenario that very specifically wants you
to. Right.
But
never going to happen, but, maybe.
Basically all of them are like positives and negatives rather than just negatives, which is what the lasting injury would be. So, and if you ever suffer a number of mutations equal to your toughness, you transform into a spawn immediately.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one, yeah.
So if you get lucky enough to mutate
3 times.
3 plus times, yeah. The first one is if you're humiliated, which is -1 cool, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Then you have to activate before every other fighter in your crew. You're the first one to activate. And if there's more than one fighter in the crew with this mutation, you get to pick which one. Fighters with the mutation get 1 additional experience point if they take out the enemy leader or champion. So downside, you have to go first. Upside, you could get bonus experience. That's it.
Next one is if you get a head injury, instead you get Dark Madness. The fighter must make an intelligence check when they activate. If the test has failed, roll a d6 to determine the first action for this activation. 1 on a 2, it's a move action. 3 to 4 is a shoot action or fight action. And the 5 to 6, you lose your action. So that one's bad.
That one's bad.
That one's could be really bad.
That one is just negative.
Yeah.
The eye injury turns your eyes into bestial senses. Fighter cannot be included as a part of a group activation, nor can they initiate a group activation if they are the leader or champion. The fighter counts as always being equipped with a bioscanner. Hey, Cody, what's a bioscanner do?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I'm going to look it up.
Let's look it up.
If a fighter with the bioscanner is the sentry in a sentry's special rule scenario, they can spot attackers even if they're not within vision arc. In addition, roll a d6 to see if a fighter is spotted. Has a +1 modifier. It literally only does something in the sentry's scenario.
Guess how many times I've played the sentry's scenario?
Is it 0?
It's 0.
Also, that one is awful. Sentries is awful.
Yeah.
Because for the first half of the game, the defender is doing nothing. And for the second half of the game, the defender's probably dead.
Yeah.
Being the defender in sentries sucks. It makes you slightly better at being the defender in sentries. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, the next one is hand injury. Instead, you get Disturbing Appendage. The fighter always counts as being equipped with a fighting knife, which cannot be disarmed or destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
When using weapons with the Unwieldy trait, the fighter suffers a -1 modifier to their weapon skill or ballistic skill rolls.
Easy. Don't put an unwieldy trait on him.
Yeah,
He just gets an extra weapon.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't mind that one. Now up next is Hobbled, which is -1 to your movement. Because I get that one all the time. Reduce the fighter's... Oh, you get warped limbs. Reduce the fighter's movement characteristic by 1, so you still get the -1. Then when the fighter makes a charge action, roll 3d3 instead of 1, choosing the highest to determine the distance you move.
This is one of the ones that I got.
Oh, yeah?
But I got it on my witch, who I never charged into
so
anybody.
Just -1 movement.
Yep.
So that's... If you get that, you should lean more into the melee. Because
Yeah.
you're going to charge more. Mm-hmm. Spinal injury.
Next one is Spinal Injury. Instead, you get Crooked Body. Range attacks made with this fighter suffer a -1 modifier to hit while within the attacking weapon's long range.
That's so stupid.
That's so bad. The fighter cannot wear armor of any kind. Any armor they are currently equipped with may be returned to the gang's stash.
So they can't wear armor, but they get -1 to hit while in long range.
Yes.
While in your opponent's long range. Because they have...
Because they're not
Because
standing properly.
Spine is broken.
Yeah, their posture's terrible.
What's the medical word for it? The
Scoliosis?
Scoliosis.
Yeah.
Because they gained scoliosis as a mutation.
That's terrible.
That is terrible.
That's so terrible.
All right. And lastly, we have Enfeeblement, which is Twisted Flesh. When the fighter activates, they may remove 1 flesh wound from their fighter card. The fighter cannot benefit from bio boosters, Medicaid kits, or assistance from other fighters when making recovery tests. The only one of those that really matter is the assistance.
Right.
So that's actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to just like heal flesh wounds. Healing is very, very rare in Necromunda. Yeah. So being able to just go, oh, don't even roll for it. Just gone.
Yeah, it's just gone.
I like that one. If you get enfeebled, pray.
Yeah.
Chaos Spawn. So they have a few special rules. Chaos Spawn are, you can turn randomly into Chaos Spawn in multiple different ways.
Right.
They count as 130 credits.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any equipment or anything and you can't ever hire them. 130 credits for your gang rating for like balance reasons.
Right.
And when you make one, you roll a d6 to determine their stats.
On everything.
On everything. So for each stat that you have, weapon skill, strength, toughness, wound, initiative, and attacks, you roll a die. On a 1, you get the worst. On a 6, you get the best. On anything else, you get in between.
Yep.
So for a 1, you get a 5-up weapon skill, a 3 toughness, 3 strength, 4 toughness, which is still pretty good.
Yeah, that's still...
1 wound, 5-up initiative, and 1 attack.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the 4-up toughness, all that's garbage. Don't roll a 1.
Yeah.
On a 2 through 5, you get an upgrade on all of them. A 4-up weapon skill, a 4 strength, a 5 toughness, 2 wounds, 4-up initiative, and 2 attacks. Pretty decent.
Yeah.
And lastly, if you're lucky enough to roll a 6, you get 3-up weapon skill, 5 strength, 6 toughness, 3 wounds, 3-up initiative, and 3 attacks.
Yeah.
So don't roll 1s. Hope you get 6s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could probably look it up on Yak Tribe still, but my Chaos Spawn was very average across the board. I think.
Sure. I mean, the one you're gonna roll the most is the average.
Yeah, I think I definitely rolled a 1 for the wounds. I'm pretty sure.
Oof.
Which is hilarious because of the way that they are. Wounds don't really matter that much for them.
That's true.
Because they are really sticky, meaning that anything other than I think the skull, they just can't be. Like, they can't be seriously injured.
They can't be pinned.
Can't be pinned.
They can't... I listed here. They cannot perform any actions other than move, charge, fight, and coup de grace. Any cool or willpower checks are automatically passed. Any leadership or intelligence checks are automatically failed. So they don't even have those stats.
Right.
Any flesh wounds or serious injuries on an injury dice are completely ignored. If they're taken out of action, they do not suffer lasting injury. It just goes away.
Just goes away.
They do have to be wrangled in
Yes.
if they go out of control. Sorry, if they go out of action.
Well, I think they have to be wrangled at the end of every match anyway.
Restrained. It is. Oh, it is automatically restrained. Sorry, I read that wrong. So they're automatically restrained. Basically, they go, and they go unconscious, and you have to wrangle them. But if they're not wrangled, if they're not out of action in a fight, you have to try and stop them from killing your whole game.
You basically, I can't remember the exact thing. During the wrap-up stage of the post-battle sequence, any battle that featured the Chaos Spawn, the controlling player must roll to see whether the cult can restrain the Chaos Spawn. So you nominate up to 3 cultists, and basically you roll a dice for each one, and a score of 4 or more, you successfully restrain it. If they all roll 3 or less, he just runs off into the Underhive somewhere.
He does this.
Yeah, basically.
So you only need 1/4, which is a pretty good chance to roll with 3 dice. And if a die scores a 1, then you have to roll for a lasting injury on the guy who that happened with, because even if you succeed at wrangling him, one guy gets like blasted against the wall or
basically.
something. It's very fluffy, very, very interesting, and because they can't suffer anything other than taken out, and when they're taken out, they get no lasting injury.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very, very good.
Yes, my Chaos Spawn was an auto-include in pretty much every single scenario I played after I got him. And I got him pretty early, so I was very lucky. I think it was like 2nd or 3rd game.
Wow.
I got him. I mean, I failed my
sure
my blessing after that for a while, but, you know, it was kind of worth it because they're so sticky.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you basically run this guy into a lane and tie somebody up for probably the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only way I think we figured out in the campaign to really get rid of them is I don't think they have any rules that specify that they're immune to web guns.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, so if you want to take a Chaos Spawn out, if you're watching this to, you know, get the upper advantage on Helots.
Because it says any flesh wound or serious injury results on an injury roll are ignored, but you don't roll for that for web. They're just like, you're in place.
Yeah.
Recover or die.
Mm-hmm. So, unless we might be wrong about that, but the way we played it is I was playing against Escher, and one of their gangers had a web gun, and
they were like, boop, nope.
Yep, literally tied him up the entire game. But other than that, just charge him into somebody, or just put him in an area where you don't want them to go because they're not going to want to get anywhere near him.
Yep.
And
he's going to either kill whatever he touches because of his high strength and potentially many attacks, or he's just going to tie him up because he's high toughness, potentially high wounds, and won't die without a skull. Like, he's just going to stand there.
Yeah, mine was pretty bad on, I think, his attacks, his weapon skill stat, so I don't think I really ever killed anybody with him.
That's fair.
But I did tie down quite a few people and basically secured entire lanes just by putting him there because nobody wanted to walk next to him.
And he's one of the biggest bases in the game.
Yes.
Because almost all of the large bases are 40 mils and Chaos Spawn are on a 50.
Yeah.
So,
but
takes up room.
Getting them to that lane or getting them into that person to tie them up can be hard sometimes because their movement is a D6.
Yep, their movement is just D6. And they could move 1.
Even though I got him 2nd or 3rd game, I don't think I moved further than 5 inches on a double move for the first half of the campaign, if not more.
That's pretty rough.
That was very rough.
It's pretty rough. Yeah, and me on the flip side, when I was doing Chaos Corrupted, I never got a Chaos Spawn.
Yeah.
I failed my roll a few times. I never became unworthy, so I never got one.
Yeah.
So if you checked out our Genestealer Cults review or our Chaos Corrupted or Genestealer Corrupted Gang review, familiars are really good.
Yes.
They are, in Genestealer Cults, they are a necessity. You must play with them or you are at a disadvantage.
Yes.
Here they're less so. They're a good benefit here, which means I think they should probably be more expensive.
Probably. This is where everybody that, like, you know, general consensus online you're going to see is that this gang's not very good.
Yeah.
But this is one thing that could make this gang very annoying.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the don't be a D word
yeah.
mechanic of Helots. Like, I'm surprised that Gene Stealers are actually better because you can only take 2 of these guys in Helots per character or per model.
Yeah, so it's you can only put them on your leader and your champions.
No.
No?
You can put them on your gangers too.
Oh, yeah, because it's one big thing. Oh, I forgot about that. Fair enough.
Yeah, so you can have, like, let's just say what they do, I guess, first.
Yeah, let's go into it.
But basically, the owner avoids 1 hit on a willpower check per familiar per turn.
So every familiar lets you pick an attack, make a willpower check, and ignore it if you pass.
Familiar itself has a 3-up invuln and dodges templates on a die roll of 1 through 3, which that also translates into the user as well. They can also dodge the templates also.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then they have clamber, which doesn't really matter.
Yeah, not a huge deal.
Unless the user has it as well. Once per round, if the owner is a psyker, can reroll a failed willpower check for a weird power.
So you basically want at least one of these on your witch.
Yes.
To be able to roll your weird
Yes. Power. I mean, you want 2 because witches are fragile, but yeah.
Their stats basically don't matter. They're movement 5 and 1 wound. Everything else is irrelevant, and they're 25 credits.
Yeah, if you do happen to get an attack through, they disappear. Like, it's not like they're just 2 little guys running around after that to tie people up. But, yeah, being able to avoid 2 attacks per turn is really...
Yeah, for 50 credits is just being like, all right.
For 50 credits.
Yeah.
On anybody. Like, I mean, I only put them on my champs and my witch and my leader.
Because you want them on your most important guys.
Yeah, you definitely want them on your most important guys. On the other guys, you know...
If you got the spare credits.
If you got the spare credits, but again, that's when it's starting to turn into you're being an a-hole.
Yep. Yep.
Because there was a couple times where I'd my witch would just be out in the open and they'd get shot at, a couple of times and just, no, you don't hit.
Yep.
No, you don't hit.
This is similar to a Blade of Armor. A Blade of Armor has the thing where it's if you succeed the armor check, then your Blade of Armor goes down.
Yeah.
So you have to hit and wound and fail the armor check. This one is you have to hit and wound in order for... No. So it just ignores a hit.
Yeah.
So your opponent has to hit you to even proc the once per turn.
Yes.
So if they miss, that's just free. Yep. You just don't get hit. It is also should be noted that this is per attack roll. So the rapid fire is really, really bad, or, squats, is really, really bad into this because you can go like, oh, I got 6 hits. And you're like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You got 0.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, melee is the way to get around this because you get a lot of attacks in melee.
Yeah, because it will only avoid one of the, say you get 3 attacks and all 3 of them hit. It will only avoid one of them, potentially 2, if you have that.
You have 2 familiars.
It's still definitely going to help, but it is a way to get around it.
Yeah. I played the Gene Stealer Cults one, which are very similar. And they basically had the same exact abilities. And it was always like, well, I'm going to charge you, and I'm going to ignore one of your hits, and then I have 1 wound and I'm dead. These guys are a little tougher because they have more than 1 wound on your champions, but still very, very strong.
Yeah.
Do recommend. And now we will finally talk about the stats.
Get to the actual models.
They have a surprising number of special rules for an Olds book. First up is the Cult Demagogue, who is the leader. He's 100 credits, which is actually decently cheap. He is movement 5, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, lots of 3s, 2 wounds, 3 up initiative, 2 attacks, 5, 5, 6, 7 for mental skills. Not terrible. They have 2 special abilities, which are inured to insanity, which means they can't ever be subject to the insane condition, which again is very strong.
Which the entire gang has that as well.
Yes, the entire gang has that. And then while they're standing, all fighters from their gang who are within 9 can use their cool or willpower checks instead of their own, which can be very strong because their cool and willpower is 5 and 6, which is decent, better than average. If you can increase those, not terrible.
So if you lean a little bit into his willpower, like going back to the Chaos Familiars,
yeah.
Say you have a champ and him in combat, and You need to roll the Chaos Familiar on your champ.
Oh yeah,
you can use his willpower.
The champs are an 8.
Yeah,
it's a little rough.
Yeah.
And the primary skills are cunning, ferocity, and leadership.
Yes.
All of those are fantastic.
Yes.
The ferocity is just great at being tough. You can take True Grit or Unstoppable to either prevent yourself from taking damage or heal it. Cunning is one of the best trees in the game with Infiltrate and Overwatch. Yeah. So if you want to lead a little more into ranged, you can do that. And then leadership is great for support. Yeah. I like any of it. I don't think there's a bad choice here.
Yeah, most of the time they're probably going to tell you to go Overseer. But if you have a melee beat stick, you would definitely want to go Ferocity, because Ferocity can definitely lean more into that.
Yeah, I mean, you can take Nerves of Steel for if you're going melee and just murder stuff, especially with either +1 to your attacks or +2 to your move with chaos buffs.
Yes.
Very, very balanced. You can really go any way you want with it. And I find this a weird restriction. You are not allowed to take heavy weapons on her.
Yeah, that one's a little weird.
You can take any other weapons. You're not allowed to take heavy. I have no idea why.
I'm not sure either, honestly.
So you can take special ranged weapons. You can take,
yeah,
plasma guns, all that stuff. But you can't take a las cannon.
It might just be balanced out for once we get to the gangers, because the gangers can be a bit broken sometimes too.
That's true. Up next,
the Cult Disciple has 5-inch movement, 4-up weapon skill, 3-up ballistic skill, 3 strength, 3 toughness, 2 wounds, 4-up initiative, 1 attack, 7 leadership, 6 cool, 8 willpower, 8 intelligence.
So yeah, a champion with only 1 attack means you kind of want to be ranged. That kind of makes sense. And also your ballistic skill is better than your weapon skill. Yes. So in general, these guys want to be in the back line.
Right, yeah. They have the cunning and ferocity as well.
So you can go with Overwatch, which is going to be better on this guy than on your leader, because your leader has more reason to be in melee.
Yeah. For my champions, when I ran them, I ran one with Overwatch with a heavy stubber. So basically, just an Overwatch, stand in the back, shoot at anything that moves. And then my other one, I just put a long rifle on it and gave it Infiltrate.
Nice. And doing something like, I don't know, an Infiltrate flamer, or some kind of an Infiltrate melee weapon on your leader, because you can do that. Infiltrate is very strong. Overwatch is very strong. We can't say it enough. Ferocity is really good about keeping you alive. There's a bunch of stuff in there for preventing yourself from leaving the board, which is great. And yeah, for 60 credits, my only real problem with them is the -1 attack, which is fine. But the willpower 8 is rough.
Yeah. When
you want to put a familiar on them to keep them alive. So like you said, you kind of want them to be near your leader so that your leader can give them the willpower.
Right.
But other than that, keep them near your leader. Although if these guys are ranged and your leader is melee, that's going to be rough. Yeah. But it happens.
I might have forgot to say it, but they're 60 credits.
They're 60 credits. They're pretty cheap for champion.
Yeah.
Up next is the Cult Witch, which you're only allowed 1 of. It is your special champion. They're 70 credits. Movement 5, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, strength 3, toughness 3, 2 wounds, 4-up initiative, 1 attack, 8 leadership, 7 cool, 6 willpower, and 6 intelligence. So significantly better willpower.
Yeah.
They are also inured to insanity, like everything else.
Yep.
And they have the witch rule, which basically just means that they're a non-sanctioned psyker, and they take powers from the tree that we talked about, the chaos tree earlier.
Yeah.
And because of the Book of the Outcast, you can take that too.
Yeah. With my witch, again, there's just limitless opportunity with how you want to run them, but mine was a little cheesy, and I gave her Click or Weapons Jinx.
Yeah, Weapon Jinx, the Technomancer one.
Yeah, you force them to make a reload action or ammo check, basically. And I don't think you have to roll for it. Like, there's no, like, it's just.
So yeah, you do the thing, they do the thing, and if they fail, they're out.
Yeah, just in line of sight, I'm pretty sure.
And if I'm remembering, that's a simple action, so you can do it twice.
You can do it twice.
That's so good.
And that's what I would do with her, is I would just run her out, and I'd be like, oh, you have a 6-up ammo check. You need to reload. Oh,
yep.
Your plasma guy over there with, scarce.
Yep.
He needs to reload.
Go ahead and give me a 5-up on that, please.
Oh, you failed? Okay, good. He's no longer a threat.
Yeah. The ability to take potentially take good heavy weapons out of the game with the introduction of the Book of the Outcast.
Yeah.
If you ignore the Book of the Outcast, you could just go with the stuff in here. You're very limited on what's like actually possible. Book of the Outcast, you can go the Pyromancer to be purely offensive. You can be defensive with time magic or mutations or whatever. I love anytime I have access to a Psyker, I love it.
Yeah. But the Book of the Outcast definitely took Helot cults from being like probably one of the worst gangs to being a pretty good contender.
Yep. Oh, the other primary skill is Savant. If you don't want to pick a psychic power, which is fine. There's some good ones in Savant.
Sure.
They're generally all support, but basically you're giving up a psychic power to take a support thing. They're limited to only pistols and close combat weapons, which is you got weapon skill, ballistic skill 5. You weren't doing any of that anyway.
Give them a hand flamer and a chainsword.
Yeah. Those are last resorts or templates.
Right.
And last up, we have the Chaos Cultists. Your lowly bottom of the barrel cultists.
But they're actually
not bad.
They're not too bad. They're 35 credits, which is dirt cheap.
Yes.
Because they don't have juves, remember. So these guys are like kind of a hybrid in between a ganger and a juve because they have 5 movement, 4 up weapon skill, 4 up ballistics, which isn't actually terrible.
I'm used to looking over at Cotor. That's 5s and 5s.
Right. They're strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 3 up initiative, 1 attack, 9 leadership, 7 cool, 7 willpower.
They have better willpower than your champion? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I never thought of it. Yeah, 7 willpower and 8 intelligence. If you get them skills, they have cunning and ferocity as well. You can have 1 specialist at creation, which is the weird part about them.
I was corrected on the GSC, and I looked it up.
Oh?
They're not specialists. They can take a special weapon, but they are not specifically specialists, so they don't level up like a specialist.
Right.
I didn't change it in my notes.
But yeah, you get 1 specialist at creation. That's the one that can level up like a regular specialist. But gangers added later can take specialist weapons.
Yep.
Which can get really cheesy really fast.
It's really strange because you start with one that has a special weapon, and then any other ones you take can't.
Right.
But you add them later and you can. So you can go like, again, depending on how much money you have, you can go pretty heavy into special weapons. So you have like this gap of like gangers in there that are kind of useless.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of gangers. I thought about like you could sacrifice them to the gods, but it's also random. Right. A bunch of gangers that have like equipment that are actually useful.
Yeah, that's where you want to be a little bit careful with it because you could absolutely just give all of these guys template weapons because their ballistic skill isn't that great. So like, a bunch of grenade launchers or flamers to set everybody on fire. You can go full to the wall cheesy with these guys.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you put a lot of money into them and then you accidentally, roll a 2, he's now a chaos spawn.
Yep.
He's gone. So
yeah, or like you could put a bunch of investments into a guy and then he, gets capped and goes away. Yeah. Or like these guys are only 35 credits.
Right.
So they're cheap and they're easy to replace. But the more big crazy stuff you put on them, the bigger a target they're going to be, the easier they are going to die. That's always my problem with putting, other than my specialists, putting good stuff on my cheap guys.
Right.
Because if I have a 35 credit guy and I put a flamer on him, he's now 175 credits with nothing else.
Right.
That's rough to stomach. Why not just put that on a better guy, like another champion?
Sure.
I don't know.
But again, you can get crazy, and that's where the Helots kind of shine is you can get a lot of bodies.
Yep.
For not a lot of credits.
Yeah.
And
35 credits for decent stats. I mean, they're like middle of the road, but like fours and fours, you can get a benefit on that pretty easily, getting +1 to hit it ranged, or take a chainsword. I like chainswords. Or a flail or something like that to get +1 to hit, and they're not bad.
You could just load them all with chain glaives and just.
I mean, if you wanna
be nuts.
Yeah, they're your meat and potatoes. They are because there's no Juves, they're the only ones that counteract for the rest of your gang. So you have your leader and your champions, and then these have to be the other half.
Right.
Like every other gang. They're not special like GSC, where it's the Abominants or gangers, but they don't count for gang fighter.
Right. It's pretty easy to keep that balance.
Yeah.
Like I've never ran into that problem with a regular gang. This one would be easier to not do that.
True. But I think and we talked about the single piece of unique equipment that's only available to cults, which is the cult icon. It is 40 credits. You can only have one in your gang, and it gives you +1 to your group activation.
Yeah.
It's fine. If you got the extra credits, it doesn't take up a weapon slot. It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't aim for it.
Yeah, if you need to burn a few credits, like with the whatever the halfway mark is called, if you have to burn something, throw them on there. Why not? But so yeah, just overall a lot of cheap bodies, which sounds good, but the problem I was running into is I could have 15 guys on my roster, but most scenarios are going to be like D3 plus whatever. So your guys are really weak.
Yeah,
your guys are really weak. D3 plus 3 gangers versus D3 plus 3 slave ogrins.
Yeah,
there's no winning that.
The real problem is you kind of have to strike a balance. Unless you're leaning into the I can take extra guys like Kador or Outcast can do. I try to keep it 12. Because then I can get to the max, and even if I have a couple guys injured, I'm not going to suffer too much.
Yeah.
Because once you go over that, you run the risk of take 6 random guys. Oh look, only gangers.
All the gangers that you just bought as meat shields for your chaos spawn sacrifice, basically.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting with the chaos spawn potentially either taking out extra guys or turning into a chaos spawn.
Right.
It's going to be an interesting balance.
So yeah, the overwhelming cheap bodies that you can get with the gangers isn't always necessarily a good thing, and I don't think it's enough to call them or make them a really good gang, basically.
Yeah, they're probably middle of the road to a little bit lower, especially for some of the newer stuff. I can't say Squats because Squats has a new book coming out.
Yeah,
I don't even know what they're going to look like.
I definitely say they're on the lower side, but if you are, if they have a high skill ceiling.
They do.
If you play them really well, they can be really, really great and really cheesy. If you go fully into the things that you can cheese with this, you're going to make a lot of people mad.
Yeah.
If everybody has 2 Chaos Familiars and template weapons
and
Overseer
and Overwatch and Infiltrate and it has the ability to be really busted.
Yeah, but if you pick and choose a couple of those, nobody's gonna get mad because that's what you need to pull them out of being the worst gang. Yeah, kind of thing. That's all they got going for them, kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I had fun with them.
I'm planning on playing them fairly soon.
Yeah, they're definitely fun. But I don't really have a super fleshed out sample list, but I do pretty much remember what my starting list when I played them is my Demagogue. He had a chain lance and a stub gun, and I took Overseer, and I think that's all I started him with. Pretty sure, and then armor.
Yeah.
And then my 2 champs, as I said before, they were both, again, I was leaning into shooting. So if you lean into shooting, I had a long rifle guy with Infiltrate. And basically, instead of being put a flame template, close to them kind of thing, I went the route of getting them to a good vantage point somewhere on the map.
There's not always that in your deployments.
If you play Zone Mortalis, that's not as good because you don't have that many sight lines and whatnot, but on Ash Waste and stuff, it's pretty good. Sector Mechanicus, it can be really good. And then basically kitting him out like that sounds pretty simple for being your champ, but I basically did it with the intentions of giving him warp rounds later, because warp rounds, if you hit them, they have to make a check, and if they fail that check, they go insane, which is huge.
So we did talk about the bones of being There's things I can't say on YouTube. Bones of being an a-hole.
Yes.
Coty. You're I have the ability to shoot you from 48 inches and give you insane.
Yeah, I guess that's another big positive to these guys is they have the black market.
Yeah, because
that I forgot to mention.
they do have to be.
Yeah, they have to be outlaw.
Because Chaos will do it, I guess.
Right. But yeah, long rifle guy. Skill him up to have a 2-up weapon skill with Zinch, so he ignores modifiers. So you're always hitting on a 2-up with warp rounds. That can be very deadly later on, even though it's just a simple long rifle.
Yeah.
And then my other one, so my second champion, was a heavy stubber with Overwatch and armor and whatever. But yeah, basically just to stand out and any targets that I want to target, move, boom, Overwatch. And they can also take warp rounds.
Yes.
So yeah,
warp rounds are not specific to Chaos, but I feel like they're very good here because of some of the things that they can get. Like with their champions leaning more into ranged. I feel like that's good. You could do it with like Goliath or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, warp rounds are very, very strong. And I mean, if you're actually, you can take them if you're anybody. You just get a penalty to going to the black market.
Right.
So yeah, the ability to give insane is first of all flavorful, and second of all very, very good.
Yeah, I mean they're Chaos. They got to use warp something.
Sure.
But yeah, so warp rounds on both the champions. Eventually, you're not going to get them for a while though.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Just kind of keeping it cheap with that. And then my witch, I gave her a chainsword and a flamer pistol.
Nice.
Because she has terrible stats, but chainsword's there just in case somebody does get into her. She gets that +1.
It has parry. It has +1 to hit. It's going to do something.
Yeah, so it's going to help her a little bit. And then temple weapon, if she does actually even shoot anybody, she's automatically going to hit them and hopefully catch them on fire and make them run around for 3 turns.
Yep.
And
ballistic skill doesn't matter when you don't roll to hit.
Correct. And then I gave her the weapon jinx. So basically, to shut down heavy and scarce weapons that were very terrifying to my really cheap guys.
That's fair. That's a good strategy.
And then basically just fill out the rest of the list with cheap gangers. Don't give them armor for now. And just give them, I think I did the, what is it, the ramshackle autogun or whatever? Reclaimed autogun.
Yeah.
It's just as good as an autogun, but I think it has a higher...
I think it has a 5-up ammo and loses plentiful.
Yeah.
So it's slightly worse, but cheaper.
Super cheap.
Which is fine.
I think it's like 15 credits, 10 or 15 credits.
It's because of regular ones 15.
Yeah, 10 credits plus the 35. So yeah, super cheap. Fill the rest of your list out with bodies like that, and then that'll give you the options later on if you need a chaos spawn sacrifice. And then in any scenarios that you can take a lot of bodies, you can take a lot of bodies. And then after that, my one specialist ganger. I gave him a grenade launcher.
It makes sense. Grenade launchers, I feel like the default for a specialist because their stats are worse, but it matters less if you miss.
Yeah, if their stats are bad, they still have that template to fall back on potentially.
Yeah. Or you can do the ignore the penalties, just like sit there, aim, and hit them with a crack grenade.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And then, just fill them out with cheap gangers and then give them special weapons as you go. And then add a couple more champs.
Yeah.
And, I did really bad, so I didn't have the money to, get super cheesy with it. But I didn't add familiars on any of them at first.
No.
I didn't start any of them with familiars, and then I think I added 2 onto all of my champs and my witch and my leader. And then I left it at that. And then eventually I had a champ with a balefire flamer.
That's great. Yeah. Again, flavorful.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, these guys are pretty sick.
Yeah.
They have a lot of flavor. They have a lot of directions they can lean. They're very customizable because of the powers that you can take and the, you have some of the best skills trees in the game.
Right.
And the being able to turn into a chaos spawn or mutate your guys is just kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like them. Although I'm biased. I like chaos. They're my favorite.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend them as your first gang.
Probably not.
If you're starting off, unless you really like chaos, but be prepared to have a rough campaign if you do, because they do kind of have a high skill ceiling, or at least they require you to know Necromunda pretty well to know movement and whatnot and how to angle your guys and stuff like that. Because if you make a mistake, one of your guys is going down probably.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But other than that, yeah, they're super duper fun. They were the second gang I ever played. So I did not have a great time with them, but I still had fun.
Yeah.
Like I didn't win very much, but I still enjoyed it.
And at the end of the day, this is a game. We're playing it to have fun.
Yes.
And that's it for us. We have went over the whole Chaos Gang and all of the gods that you can ally with and maybe turn to a spawn.
Yeah. As Josh always says, if there's anything we got wrong,
let us know.
Let us know in the comments. We really appreciate those.
I had to check some stuff. I told you specifically to let me know if I was wrong. And yeah, let us know. Any engagement's great. We read through all of the comments you guys put out because we like talking with the community. This game is just so focused on the community that it's great to hear people's stories.
No, absolutely.
Get people's lists and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And rules can be confusing because Necromunda, you spend $100 on models and then $200 on books.
It is a very, very deep library. We'll call it that.
Yes.
But until next time, bye-bye.